Live.
All right. Awesome.
Well, hello, Facebook. And Chris, it is so good to have you with us. How are you today, man?
I'm doing really well. I'm happy to be on this call. That's for sure.
Right on. Well, I'm happy to have you on the call. So here's what I think people need to know. And remember, we've got essentially three different sort of deliverables here, right? Right. We've got one right now with people that can
Yep.
just kind of catch it on Facebook as it happens to go by live. The audio will be the all-in podcast, and that will probably be up in about 10 days or so, is my guess. And then the video will be on YouTube. So that I just want you to think that there are people right now that are somewhere in the country, and maybe they're dealing with some stuff, and some of your experiences could be really valuable to them. But also, Chris, at some point, somebody's going to be on a treadmill a month from now, like, hey, who's Bill's latest interview? And you're going to speak to them there, and the same thing could happen on YouTube. So we kind of got a lot of different points in to folks, right? But let's lay a little bit of background. So you and I were involved in coaching how many years ago?
I think we started initially 15 years ago.
Okay.
Is that about right? 06 maybe?
Yeah, that sounds
I think it was
right.
06. The pre-meltdown, it all kind of like blends together. So
it was pre-meltdown.
I don't really know, but it was definitely pre-meltdown. I believe it was 06 when we started.
Yep. And then did we meet at Sales Mastery? Is that right?
Actually, the first time I became familiar with coaching, I went to a Sales Mastery event. I was new in the mortgage business. Had no idea what I was really getting into. A real good friend of mine had a mortgage company, said, hey, you should try this. So I put all my eggs in one basket, bought a ticket, flew out to Palm Springs, went to an event, couldn't write enough notes. And I told you this before, but how I got to Building Champions, you'd spoken on stage. Your voice really resonated with me. I enjoyed just the way you were talking. I just felt like I could be open and learn from you. And I step on an elevator about an hour later or so, and Dave Savage and Daniel Harkavy are on the elevator, and they probably won't remember this but I said to them, just because I didn't know any better, I've only got a certain amount of extra money I can spend right now. Should I spend it on mortgage coach or coaching with Building Champions?
Oh my goodness.
I didn't know, I really didn't know the difference, I knew that coaching was something because I was an athlete growing up that I really did well with.
Yep.
And I knew that some friends of mine were coached at the time of Building Champions, and I liked what I heard, but I also liked that software that was way ahead of its time in mortgage coach,
Oh my goodness.
So
for people that don't know, I just want them to hear that Dave Savage is the co-founder of Mortgage Coach. And by the way, if you're not using Mortgage Coach, like, what are you doing right now? So please go run towards it, because really what you were attracted to and what it is today are two completely different things. And it really is just game changing in the way that you can put together a total cost analysis. You create information that can be live, and you can. So if somebody says, "Yeah, what if we put $75,000 down? What is that?" Like, you can adjust that on the fly live while they see it.
Yes.
And then, of course, Daniel Harkavy, that you mentioned, is the founder of Building Champions, a company that's about to celebrate its 25th anniversary, I think, in September. Yeah. And he's the guy that just started the whole life planning, business vision, business plan kind of track that you went on. So we did that for a while, and then you were like, yeah, enough of this Bill Hart coaching thing. Like, I'm out. So when did that happen?
Well, like so many, I had to find another source of income when the meltdown was happening. And I'd had a long and a pretty successful career in the automotive industry.
Yep.
And you still coached me, I think, for about 8 or 9 months after I got back into the automotive industry, just because I felt like I needed it.
Coaching is coaching. Yep.
Now, all of a sudden the car industry did the same thing, right? All of a sudden all these bombs are going off around me, but I managed to survive.
Exactly.
So I just didn't have that, like, our relationship kind of fizzled after that. But over the years, we definitely communicated back and forth via social media, and I definitely watched just about everything you've done just to keep me focused. So.
Well, I appreciate it, brother. It's, that's the thing that I love about social, that man, if you're watching or listening to this right now and you don't catch this, then you're missing something that could really help you. And that is that, for a guy like me who read Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crush It, I think probably 12 years ago now, something like that. Man, back then he was talking about video and like the power of video. And I just took to it like a fish to water, like, yeah, let's do this. And what I didn't realize is that the byproduct is what you just described, where there's so many people that say, man, I've been connected to you. I've been hearing you doing your stuff, and, I've been connected. And so if you're a loan originator, if you're a realtor, if you're a financial advisor, man, figure out a way to be more present with your tribe and your database, because just even this story with Chris is an example of, you can send out postcards and there's a school of thought behind that I get. But man, social just makes it makes it so much more relatable, right? Because people are like, I know that guy, I'm connected with that person. So anyway, side note. So look, man, all in. The first thing that you just said though, Chris, is something that I think is interesting. You said I was new in the business, and I just decided, well, I'm going to fly to this event, spend a bunch of money, and then I got to figure out where I'm going to invest. Like, you were clearly, all in right from day one. And I also know that you were that guy in the car businesses, which is why you were so successful there. So I want people to kind of anchor that, like, oh yeah, this guy really is all in. There's a great example of it. But here's what they don't know about you. They don't know, first of all, that you're enormous. Like, how tall are you?
I'm 6'5". Yeah.
Yeah. You're 6'5", 2 something. You're a lot of man.
6'5" and a slim 270.
A slim 270. Nice. Yeah. But what they don't know about you is that you've also, I don't know how you describe it, but like, you've got 1.5 arms. Am I correct on that?
So I'm missing
part of
my left arm there.
Yep.
It's interesting. This morning I was at the gym with my personal trainer, and I follow several different limb difference Instagram accounts.
Yep.
And there's some really good stuff out there for children with limb differences right now. And so I posted some stuff this morning to them, showing me working out with this adaptive cable we hooked to my arm. And I've gotten a huge response from that. But, it's funny, as to get prepared for this conversation with you, Bill, I wrote down a bunch of different things, and I wrote down my strengths. And my first strength is that I have a limb difference. And
cool.
I think that that's a huge advantage for me over anybody who doesn't have them.
Yep.
Okay.
So, I mean, I say yep, but I don't understand. Yeah, so you got to tell me more.
Well, as a kid, I didn't realize that, I wasn't sure. And it's an awkward time being a kid anyways, much less have a limb difference. Right. So,
no.
I just had to hustle and do everything I could as a kid, athletically and personally, to try to overcome that. But the older I got, the more I realized I'm exactly what everybody else wants to be, right? Everybody else wants to be different than everyone else. Amen. But I don't have to do anything different than that. I don't have to change my hair. Well, I don't have any now, but, or do anything crazy like that. Right. I was blessed with being born with that limb difference. So when I walk into a room, I get people's attention, not intentionally, but I do. So that's an advantage I have over you. If I walk into a room and I'm trying to meet the people you're trying to meet, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I love that. So if people go to your Facebook account, they'll see that. Was it your wedding? Is that your wedding picture?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So, and your suit is tailored.
Oh yeah.
Right? So
here's
it's like a short sleeve. Oh,
today.
Everything's tailored.
Oh yeah. No, come on now. You got to, if you're going to represent,
you got to about it.
No, all my suits are tailored, and my my shirts and stuff. Yeah. I mean, why not? Why wouldn't you?
I 100% agree. Why would you do the Civil War like pins?
Yeah, I used to fold it back and tie it up in a knot and do whatever I could do. And then when I was blessed enough to be able to afford to have stuff tailored, I started just having my shirts tailored. So yeah,
it's just never occurred to me. But I get it. Like, as soon as you say it, I'm like, well, that's what I would do.
Yeah,
I would totally do that.
I mean, you tailor your pants so they fit, because they're not too long,
absolutely.
Right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, same thing.
So I love that. And then I love that you said, and for somebody right now who's listening to this, there's going to be someone with a child with a limb difference, who's an infant, who's a toddler, who's a tweener, whatever. And maybe they just need to hear this from you. So what I would love to hear is just a little bit more on that. I am not like everybody else as a kid, because there's a moment where we all just want to conform. But then there's a moment in time where it's like, oh, actually being different is very cool. Like, can you just expand on that
Yeah,
just a
I
little bit?
mean, you know, the children that are today going to face this, or the ones in the future. So here's a good thing for social media, right? Like we're
Yeah.
talking about the past. Here's a good thing for social media, and there's a site that I follow and I donate money to called the Lucky Fin Project. You know, Finding Nemo, the Lucky Fin, right?
You bet.
So it's a great site to be able to see where children with limb differences and to be able to get a little bit extra push there. But you know, my whole time as a kid, I was always told, "Oh, you're special. You're this. You're that." You
Yeah.
don't believe that till you get a little bit
Of
older and realize
course.
that I am different. But
Right. Right.
you know, if you have a kid today that's born with a limb difference, there's a lot of opportunity for them.
Cool.
So they don't have to overcome the little things that I
Cool.
had to overcome continually, and
Yeah.
now it's a lot of availability to do things.
Right on, man. Well, that's good to hear. So the Lucky Fin Project, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I'd love for people to go there, and we'll have it in the show notes as
Mhm.
well. So now let's fast forward, man. You were an athlete. What were your sports?
I played baseball and football. Those are the two main sports, but I could take you on the basketball court anytime. And you know, the older I get, I tried to shoot baskets the other day, and it just was not. I can't jump anymore, Bill.
Yeah.
I
Well,
can't jump
welcome.
anymore. Yeah,
Welcome.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's why you've taken up golf.
yes, I do play golf now, and I
You
try to
can play
stay in the
golf
gym.
forever, man.
Try to stay in the gym and get as much as much fitness
Yeah.
out of it as I can. So
Well, I'm proud of you for doing that. So,
yeah.
so you've got this great company with partners in
Mhm.
Florida. Tell them a little bit about your organization.
Yeah. So I
Well, not
was
just Florida, actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
we're in
ahead.
Florida and Hawaii
Yep.
right now. But
Why
so I
wouldn't you?
work.
If you were going to have a company any
I mean,
place,
why
why
not,
wouldn't it be
right?
Florida and
Yeah.
Hawaii?
I,
Yeah.
I haven't gotten an opportunity to visit the branch office there yet. I'm still wondering why I don't get that, but we'll see what happens. Exactly. Yeah, I work with certified mortgage planners. We're out of Lake Mary, Florida. The two partners just celebrated their 20th anniversary in business. And you know, we're a non-delegated correspondent lender, and we've done some amazing things. We've really focused on taking care of the client,
For
not
sure.
just saying that. That's really what we do.
Yeah.
But our number one client is our staff.
Nice.
It's our employees. I mean,
I love
we
that.
really go out of our way to make sure that they're taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah. I know your heart, and I know that's what you're about. And so give us a rough idea of volume, just so we get a rough idea of how you guys
Okay.
are doing.
So last year we did just over $500 million
It's
in
great.
volume last year,
Great.
which was up from about 300 and I think 340 the year before.
Yep.
We did some amazing things in 2020. So did everybody. But I really felt we were prepared for a lot of that until we broke through that ceiling, the Roger Bannister. You know, we broke through the 4 minute
mile.
mile.
Yep.
We did like some 2-minute miles in
Nice.
2020, I
Yes,
think.
you did.
But we really learned that what we were capable of.
Yeah.
And we were capable of way more than we thought we could do.
Yeah. No doubt.
You know, and I think that's why we're having such a great year this year still. You know, we're on track to do like 650 this year.
Yep.
So and we only did 36% refi last year. So
well, I that's the part I'm probably most excited about, and I knew you would get there eventually. But I think it's important for people to hear that if you're in the mortgage industry and you were a loan originator or a branch manager, an executive, you know that's not the norm, right? The norm was, you know, probably reversed, right? More than likely.
It was.
So yeah, just the fact that your focus was legitimate and you delivered on that, and it has made you better. It has optimized your team and teams, plural, to do what you're doing now moving forward. To me, is tremendously exciting. So congratulations on a heck of a year and another great year shaping up.
Yeah, we have some people that are really talented and committed to doing the work. And we preach that all the time. Let's do the work. Let's do the work.
Do the work.
And you know, sky's the limit in our industry. You know,
right on, brother.
It really is. Yeah.
So here's the thing that got you and I thinking in a coaching call, and I don't know if it was you or me, and it doesn't matter, but one of us came up with the idea that, wow, you really are that all-in guy, and I think it just suddenly hit me that, wow, he's got such a great story to tell, and I think you can help so many people. You may already have in the early minutes of this call. But now that, the next part of this is the tough part, right? And that is for the last, I don't know, I'll let you tell the story, but not very long period of time, starting with your son, this has been just a ridiculous period of loss for you. And
that's
there are some people, Chris, that they've yet to experience it. They're 35 years old and their parents are healthy and they haven't lost their grandparents, and they, you know what I mean? Like they haven't had this experience yet. Others have been through it pretty dramatically. Man, you have had your share. And while I don't want to wallow in the sorrow, and I know you don't either, I think there's some lessons here, man, for people who are maybe just going through this now and probably need to hear from you. And I'd just love to have you riff a little bit on this horrific experience that's been sharpening you.
Yeah. It goes back a little bit before that. I had lived at 46 years at that point before and experienced a little bit of loss, but nothing catastrophic or what I would feel, that was a huge difference. Had all my grandparents and my parents and everything. And in January of 19, I lost my father to a stroke, unexpectedly, extremely healthy.
Right. Yep.
And then September of 19, my mom passed away from liver cancer. So 19 was like, this is just crazy. And then my wife and I were fortunate enough to get pregnant in December of 19. And we were extremely excited. Everything was, a little bit, we had some challenges along the way, but we felt like everything was going as planned. I brought a box of tissues in case I start to cry a little
brother.
Here. But
Good call. I've got some right here.
Yeah, and my unexpectedly, we had to go into the hospital in June of 2020 in the middle of COVID. Luckily, in Florida, I was allowed to go into the hospital with my wife. And there's some states I would have not been allowed.
I didn't even think about that, but I had a friend who was losing his wife out here in California, and he couldn't go into the hospital.
I had a friend whose wife had to give birth in a hazmat suit in another state. That's just crazy. But so I stayed with my wife, went in the hospital, was in there for about 3 weeks. There were some issues. We weren't sure what was going on. And so I was there every day, 3 weeks with my laptop working from the hospital room because that's what you do. Yep. And then our son was born. Sorry.
Buddy, there's nothing to be sorry for.
He was born July 2nd, and he was only with us for about 18 hours.
Yeah.
So he had cardiomyopathy hyperplasia, and the fact that he even made 18 hours was amazing, that we got to spend that time with him. I walked into the room and, they got all the tubes and just, he's on a ventilator, and I reached down to touch him, and his name was Christopher, and I called him CJ, and he grabbed my finger and kicked his legs. So, yeah.
You never told me that.
Yeah. So I knew he knew I was there, that I was there. And, we'd been a long time at the hospital there. And my wife it was a tough C-section, and it just couldn't get her blood pressure up. And there was time where I'm sitting in a room by myself, not knowing, am I going to have either one of them?
Of course.
So, I go home after my wife's stable and she sees Christopher, and I go home to try to just get some sleep real quick. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, my wife calls and says, "Hey, you need to get back to the hospital. They don't think he's going to make it." So I drove like it looked like I was in a stunt driver in a movie. I don't know how else to drive than that. Got to the hospital, and unfortunately, I got there. They had revived him when I got there, but they had revived him 3 times in about 4 hours. And I finally said, I just can't do that to him anymore. There's just, So, you're sitting there and you think, all I can think about is, my wife. How's she going to be? How is she?
Yeah, of course.
And our relationship has gotten it was great anyways. It's gotten so much stronger, from that point. And I think that a lot of people aren't privy, aren't as lucky, when they go through that kind of loss.
Well, I'm sure I mean, I don't know the stats on it, but that kind of trauma can break apart a marriage easily.
Yeah, sure can.
Right.
Sure
So
can.
I love that it had the opposite effect on you. And I also know, Chris, that you're a man of faith. And
Yep.
I know what a difference that can make, because you have an assurance that you'll
Yep.
see your son in eternity.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that's made it so I can actually deal with it. That I know I'm going to see him someday, and I still see him in things all the time. I mean, I feel his presence,
Right
and
on.
in as we continue to work through that, my father-in-law passed in December from COVID. My grandfather, my mom's dad, passed in January from COVID. And then we lost my 3.5-year-old nephew. Sorry.
No, buddy. It's an appropriate reaction.
that was
Everybody
that that was
understands.
that was a tough one for sure.
Yeah.
We lost him to San Filippo, and it was tough. I mean, and it still is. And we're about 7 weeks out from that.
Yeah.
And then he has a twin sister. I say identical because she's been around identical, but she have a twin sister, and she's amazing little girl. We spend a lot of time with her, and her mom and his mom and dad we have a very close family. My wife's family is extremely close. And then, gosh, I just keep throwing things at you here, but
no, I know.
My grandfather was 95 and passed away a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I also lost a friend of mine at 60. He had a heart attack down in Costa Rica. And then Memorial Day, I lost one of my really good high school buddies who I spent a lot of time with at 48. We're not really sure what the cause is there, but I was thinking about this morning, Bill, and I'm like, I'm numb right now to this stuff. I've had multiple conversations with you. I'm like, I'm numb to certain things.
You would have
happen.
to be. Yep.
But adversity, an analogy for me, adversity is like cardio. The more adversity you face in life, the stronger you're going to be. Right. So the more cardio do, the more you're going to be able to get through the day to day. And
it's a really good point, man. It's a really good point. And the other thing is, Chris, so I'm going to make an observation, but let me just stop and acknowledge, what you just said. I mean, that's just a ridiculous amount of loss. It's a ridiculous amount of loss. And we say things like, God won't give you more than you can handle. And I'm sure you've really struggled with that. Like, seriously, you've been through an unbelievable amount of loss, and you guys are continuing to process this. But here's what I'm reminded of. The people that have been around me for any period of time know that I'm a huge supporter of our military and boot campaign. And, one of the things that they asked me to do a while back was to work with some of the veterans that wanted to give back so they're retired, they've been injured, and they want to give back through boot campaign. And they've lost limbs, they've lost sight, they've, horrific injuries, right? And so my job was to help them to tell their story. Well, the problem is every time they would tell their story, they'd get emotional and they get locked up, and they couldn't get through it. So one of the things that we learned is the more you tell it, not that you need to, that's not my encouragement here, but this was just my observation with veterans. And if anybody is a veteran or knows or loves a veteran who has been through any kind of physical injury, but it could also just be it could also be a traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress for sure. The more that you talk about it and work your way through it, the easier it becomes to tell the story. You sort of get a bit desensitized to the emotion, but you're still conveying the facts, because that can impact other people, right? And that's kind of what I saw was probably going to happen here, today. And so let me get to the other side, because, honestly, here's what I know for sure. My cousins lost, I don't even know, man, what would this have been, 40 years ago? Both of his parents and both of their children, so 4, in a car accident. Drunk driver flew over the Meridian, took him out in one fell swoop. And these were believers. These were people with a strong Christian faith. But I'm telling you, Chris, they never came back. Like they never came back. They would go to therapy, group therapy kind of things, and they'd say, well, he lost his son and they lost their daughter and they lost, but like nobody lost both their parents and both their kids.
Yeah.
And so they just kind of bought into this, like it's something you could do, right? You could say, well, yeah. That's loss, but it's like Crocodile Dundee, right? Like that's a knife, right? Like, let me show you my loss. But then I think of my brother-in-law who also lost his son. I think I told you this it was actually
skateboarding accident, right?
Skateboarding accident. Yeah. And it was it was bad. But you know what, man, he has joy because he knows that he'll see his son again. And I just look at those two examples and look, this is completely out of character for my typical show, but what I know is if anybody's ever seen my shoulder taps video, you know that I believe that God taps you on your shoulder and says, psst, like, do this, tell this story, do this thing. What I know is somebody's listening to this right now, Chris, or somebody knows somebody that needs to hear it. And they're going to be encouraged by you. So I'd love to know, like, I know you don't have any magic ticket here, but how have you pushed through this? I know you said you're a little numb. You would have to be. How do you push through day in, day out?
I think the big thing is the support from your friends and family around you. I think one of the biggest fears you have as a parent who's lost a child is that the child will be forgotten.
Totally.
Okay. So, I want people to talk about my son, and I want people and we want people to talk about Connor Mackey, my nephew. Yep. And I think that as soon as we stop talking about them, other people are going to forget them.
For sure.
And I just had a family get together last weekend. My grandmother turned 94. We did a little memorial video thing for my grandfather out in Southern California.
Cool.
And we wanted everybody to talk about CJ.
You bet.
And because they don't know what if you say, let's say, hey, it's okay for you to talk about him. Yeah. And they feel better, but because they don't know what to say, they don't want to upset anybody.
It's counterintuitive. They don't want to make you sad, right?
Yeah, you're not gonna. I'm past the sad part of that. I'll be sad the rest of my life that he's not here, and I think about him all the time, and I see him and other kids.
You bet.
But it was about 8 months for me, and I was sitting on my pool deck in a Sunday morning, like I do, and reading my journal from a year prior, before anything happened. And all of a sudden I realized that I hadn't been taking care of myself. I hadn't been doing my daily routine that really got me to where I'm at. I'd lost who I was to myself. And if I don't take care of my mental, physical, and spiritual health, I can't help anybody else out.
Totally.
And that's when I saw your name. I'd written at the top of a page. It said, call Bill Hart. And this was in March of 2020, that journal was. And that's when I emailed you that Sunday morning. You probably was way before you got up.
I remember.
But I felt I needed to get back into that relationship.
Yeah. So that's great. I think that's really great encouragement to people. It seems so simplistic. It's like so basic, but I've seen it again and again and again. I've sat in this chair for 18 and a half years and 17,000 hours of coaching. And I've just coached a lot of people through loss. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm saying I've learned this from you guys, right, that have been through it. And that's one of those things is at some point you've got to say, well, I could stay home in my pajamas and drink bourbon in the morning and just not do anything, and not eat because I'm not hungry. But how are you serving anyone? And so to get back on track to, as you said, I've got to take care of myself physically, emotionally, spiritually, right? I've just got to push through and do those things because now I'm taking care of the kind of the mothership, or the fathership in your situation. But you do, right? And by the way, I have to tell you, we just had a comment come through from Leonard Cullip who said, what an impact little CJ had. 18 hours that has a lasting effect. Thank you, Chris, for touching my heart with your story this morning. So that's happening, right? That's happening. And so for somebody right now who's going through loss, and so many people lost folks through COVID last year, there's so much loss that people are trying to process. The other thing that I would suggest is, man, find somebody to work it through, whether it's a coach, or a therapist or somebody from a church or whoever it might be. but to kind of just pin it up on the wall and look at it and get some coping skills to kind of start moving through that. Because if you just shut it down and you don't ever look at it,
No.
it's going to come out other ways, and it's generally not pretty.
This isn't like losing your house. Okay.
Yeah.
This isn't like losing a dog. That's not what that is. And I it's funny. It's rare for somebody, a stereotypical 6'5", 275-pound man, to talk about counseling.
Yeah.
But I went to therapy, and then we were in therapy for a long time, my wife and I even went to a psychiatrist because I was having trouble. I was diagnosed with PTSD.
Yep.
I mean, my son died right in front of me. What
makes total sense.
So taking care of my mental health was a huge step for me.
Yep.
I mean, understanding that I can't do that on my own.
Yeah.
You know
right
what I
on.
mean? But what I want people to understand is I still have bad days.
For sure.
Okay? I still have bad days. I still have bad moments where I've got to call my wife and say, hey, I need your help right now.
Yep.
I need to talk to you. Or she calls me and we work through that together. And but you still have those moments. I still have days where I don't want to go to work.
You bet.
And let me tell you something, to deal with the loss that we dealt during COVID, where we were locked in our houses.
Yeah.
I mean, I went down a rabbit hole that I wasn't sure I was going to get out. I mean, it wasn't like all of a sudden I just felt better about it. It was a long period of time before I could even have a conversation. My wife and I, we got home from the hospital the day after CJ passed, and we didn't let anybody in our house for 2 weeks.
Wow.
No family, nobody. We just didn't. There was nobody in my family that right at that point that could help me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just did.
Yeah.
I needed my wife. And
sure.
my company was amazing. I mean, take as much time as you need. You're good. And then they got together. Terry Hatfield Dole, who's one of my originators, she is a rock star, but she put together this meal plan and they fed me. That's probably why I weigh 270 now. They fed me so much food. But I mean, it was like every time I turned around, there's somebody at the door delivering more stuff.
So cool.
And the support I got from my, we call it a professional family. The support I got from people at my work was, I didn't expect that. You know what I mean? Like,
that's so cool.
Amazing, the outpouring of support we got, and the respect of our privacy, which is what we needed for a long time.
That's huge. That's huge.
Until we were finally good to go out. But the therapy part of it, I had to go through therapy to be able to feel like I could go out and deal with other people.
Yeah, man. So I love there's sort of lessons on both sides here. So if you've been through loss, you've been through something like this, I think you've given people a lot of great encouragement about, like, do what you got to do. For you guys, it was, we're going to sequester, particularly in a COVID environment. Mm-hmm. I know type A's often struggle with people offering help. So I don't know if that was difficult for you in the beginning, or if you saw it immediately, like, I get it, and this is appreciated. We'll take the food. Thank you very much. But if somebody's listening to this and you're struggling with that, like, dude, let people help, because they don't know what else to do. On the other side of the equation, I learned something years ago. I never told you this. This has been 40 years ago, and I was with Century 21 at the time at their regional office, and one of my guys had lost a child to SIDS, a baby, to sudden infant death
syndrome. Yeah.
And I inadvertently said something along the lines of, man, I know how you must feel. And he just looked at me with that 1,000-yard stare, and he said, Bill, I appreciate it, but you have no idea. And it was like, oh, of course. And so I've learned I can never say that. And the other thing, by the way, I don't care if a woman has a belly with a t-shirt that says baby with an arrow. I am never going to say, when do you do? And I'll tell you why. Because years ago, I asked a woman, when do you do? And she said, I had my baby 3 weeks ago. And I was like, how do I just disappear right now? How do I? So those are the two moments where, man, I'm just going to love on people, but I'm never going to make a comment. But dude, you've helped people today. I am absolutely convinced of that. And I guess I want to leave you with last thought, because I know you said you made some notes. Knowing that the theme is all in, we talked a little bit about how you grew up, how you embraced your uniqueness. Mm-hmm. how you embrace sports, clearly how you've embraced business, everything you've done, you've been successful at, sales mastery, just that story about, being all in. I'm just curious, man, at this point in you're how old now, Chris?
I'm 48. Yeah.
So at 48 years old, living the life that you've lived thus far, if you were going to talk to a young person, somebody starting out, somebody who maybe has just graduated college and they're starting to fire out resumes, like what would your advice be in this framework of being all in? What would you say to them?
Well, it's very easy to have that conversation because I have a daughter who just graduated college a few weeks ago.
There you go. That's right.
She started her new job today, and I had a conversation with her before she went to her new job.
Nice.
Whether she listened to Dad or not, I don't know. But and it's funny. I have a conversation with a couple kids at the gym the other day. I actually handed them both the book "Winning" by Tim Grover because they were talking about they weren't sure what they were going to do in their future. I would say that you're going to fail a lot, and social media makes it look like people don't fall on their faces and stuff, but they do.
Totally.
The more you fail, the more chances you have to succeed. I failed a lot along the way. And I still, it's still going to happen more. But, and I think that the big thing is that, like I told my daughter this morning, be the first one there and the last one to leave. If you commit to that for 5 years, you'll be the best in the business.
Love it. Simple wisdom. So true. As someone who has had people working for me, I know that if I saw that, I recognize that. Yeah, man, that's great advice. So, Chris, I would love for people to come hang out with you on social. Chris Welton, that best place to find you?
No, my best place to find me is on Instagram. It's one hand at a time.
Of course it is. Why do I not know this? Like the numeral?
Yeah. No, it's actually spelled out one hand at a time.
Well, you and I are connecting today. I'm telling you that. One hand at a time. Can't believe I did not know that. Well, Chris, you're a joy, man. I've always appreciated you. I love the combination of your heart and your wisdom, your intellect. I think you're a great leader. You're an amazing dad. You're clearly a great husband, and the world's a better place because you're in it. So thanks for spending time with us today, my brother.
I appreciate it, Bill. I do.
Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah.